know what? For a mid product, this thing slaps pretty hard. There we go, nice and centered. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my workshop. Today I'm talking about the Kayo Armory deck, not the Kayo Armory CC deck, but the Kayo Armory Blitz Deck, which actually, believe it or not, this is the Kayo Armory CC deck. It all fits in one nice Dragon Shield box. But, if we look at it, we'll notice that less than half the cards seem to be upside down. Why is that? Well, turns out, if you take out one of each card in the Kayo Armory deck, you have a perfectly legal Kayo Armory, where'd you go, buddy? A Kayo Armory Blitz Deck. Kayo Armory, and Young Kayo borrowed from my Blitz Precon deck. I'm still happy they brought this back. And you know what? This deck, it slaps. It's really good. In fact, I think it's better as a Blitz deck than it is as a CC deck. Because in Blitz, it's all about go fast, go hard, or go home. Unless you're playing old him, but luckily he's been LL for a while now. In fact, let's talk about this Kayo Armory Blitz Deck and why, in the world of fantasy, if you happen to see one of these products on your shelf, why you should just pick it up and don't question it. So picture this. You're at your LGS and you see a Blitz Armory going on. You look at the shelves and you find a Kayo Armory deck sitting there. And you think to yourself, oh, maybe I can join in too. So you grab it and you look at it and you're like, well, this is a CC deck. I can't use it for Blitz. Can I? Well, the answer is yes, you can. Oh, on second thought, well, that's $10 over MSRP. It's not the worst. Still, maybe one day we can see that lower. Better than it was. It turns out the LSS, either intentionally or by accident, has designed the Kayo Armory deck to the point where you can use it as a legal Blitz deck. Turns out you take out one of each card, you have a 40 card deck ready to go. And not only do you have a 40 card deck, you have a consistent and somewhat powerful 40 card deck ready to go, which is really cool because when I played this deck, it was really good. I will admit one thing though, I did have one card I added, No Rune Hood. It's just there for the Runeblade matchup, but I never used it because I forgot. And my first match was a Runeblade. But it's there, and I kind of do recommend it just because. Actually, I recommend the Brute headpiece instead. I don't have it, and that's just for the Rosetta Thorn. If you have it, great. If not, No Rune's not as bad. But still, even without this, if we were to remove this, you still have a really good deck that can hold out on its own in Blitz. Whether you go 0-4, 1-3, 2-2, 3-1, or 4-0, which by the way I went 4-0, this deck is surprising to me, just how good it is. But that doesn't mean there's not room for upgrades. Being a pre-constructed deck, it's not a perfect deck, and like I've said before, despite winning an Armory with it, each of those games could have gone a whole different direction just because I lacked that small oomph to push the deck over the edge, whereas these Toon decks had that oomph. And I'm not going to say luck's not a part of it either. I mean, it's a trading card game. There's luck. You have 40 cards, you shuffle it. But that doesn't mean we can't upgrade our deck ourselves. And if we go here, this is kind of like a guide to what you can do to upgrade / side grade this deck to make it better for you or better for your armories. So let's say you decide the Kayo Armory deck is fun, and I want to make it my main Blitz deck. What can I do to make it better? Well, I have some options for you. First off, you actually have a few options of weapons. The deck comes with Mandible Claw, and Mandible Claw is arguably the best weapon to use. 2 for 3 with Go Again most of the time. There's really no good reason not to use it, but there are reasons to use the other weapons. Ball Breaker is also a 2 for 3, but it gets +1 if you discarded a card with 6 or more power. Well, guess what? You're always going to discard a card with 6 or more power, making this a 2 for 4. And 2 for 4, you can ask any Guardian, is a good number. Only downside is it doesn't have Go Again, but if you build a deck around Agilities and Go Again, you have a guaranteed way to do 4 damage or threaten 4 damage to your opponent. Another option is Mini Me Axe. Mini Me Axe probably has the worst argument for it, but a 2 for 3 with a guaranteed draw and discard is not bad in the deck where you want to discard. Only downside again being no Go Again, but because it has a random discard, it's a good way to activate or force activate cards like Beaten Trackers, as well as High Tanner. These cards look for random discards, not chosen discards. So when you discard a card like Mighty Windup or Agile Windup, it doesn't actually activate Beaten Trackers or High Tanner. Whereas Mini Me Axe, because it is a random discard, you can then activate your Beaten Trackers, get to Go Again, or an action point. You're better off if you do it with, let's say, a Agility token. But still, the guaranteed discard, really good. In Savage Sash, you just can't take it out of deck. Savage Sash is the best chess piece in the game for Brutes. Unless you have some kind of crazy, mind-blowing strategy using a different chess piece, I recommend just running this one. But hey, props to you if you have a crazy idea and want to make it work. As for the deck itself, there are 10 cards in the deck I considered unremovable. Though I could see arguments for Savage Beatdown to be removed depending how you build the deck. But if we're going with the same core strategy, Savage Beatdown has got to stay. It's a 3 for 12. And well, not really a 3 for 12, it's a 3 cards for 12. But activate this with Savage Sash or by itself. If you have a 4-card hand and you can play this card, play it. 12 damage is more than half of your opponent's life. You're either gonna force damage or strip their hand from them. It's a good card. Pulping, despite the fact that it can't block, is almost a guaranteed 2 for 6 Go Again. Not only do you draw a card and discard a card at random, but because you're always going to discard a 6 power card, you got guaranteed dominate, and because it's dominated, unless you're up against some kind of crazy Guardian, chances are they're not going to have 2 cards to block with. They're going to have, I don't know, probably some attack in their arsenal, meaning that they can't block with it, and you're going to get that Go Again. Downside, it can't block, but hey, who needs to block when you can threaten damage? Wild Ride, it can't block as well, but it's, again, guaranteed Go Again. Think of it as a not good version of Pulping. No, not good. It's a good card, but think of it as a not as good version of Pulping, only the Go Again is guaranteed. And Agile Windup and Assault and Battery, these two make agility tokens, and agility tokens make the game. In the inventory, I just moved all the cards in the deck to keep them at hand. Obviously, you can still run them. They're all good cards. Some of them have pretty weak reasons to be in the deck. Yellow Bear Fangs is not a bad card, but there's better options, like Yellow Wild Ride. Bastion Battlefront, or Battlefront Bastion, it's just there because it meets the requirements. You can replace it, and I do actually have a good side grade card you can use instead. Mighty Windup, it's good, but Might tokens are they're good. It's just that it's not as good as agility tokens. Wrecker Romp is easily the worst card in the deck. 2 for 6. You're better off running the red. At least it's 2 for 8, but even then, 2 for 6 and it's a forced discard, and you don't even draw a card off of it. It's just not that great. There's better options, and we'll see that later on. As for the equipment I put here, Beaten Trackers, it's a good card in Blitz. It really is. But there are options you could choose, so that's why I put it here. You could run Scapskins, and you could run Snapdragon, as we'll see if you decide to build a deck a certain way. High Tanner, it's still good, but people like Apex Bonebreaker. If you have Apex Bonebreaker, you could probably pick either one in Blitz. Goliath Gauntlet's also not a bad option, depending on how you build the deck, because that guaranteed +2 is just pretty good. And as for Knucklehead, Knucklehead's just in the inventory because it doesn't do anything besides block. There's a lot of equipment that blocks, and there's equipment that does more than blocking. Knucklehead's not a bad card. It's kind of simple. So moving on to our maybe pile. These are the it's not really 104 cards. All these cards here are what I consider good upgrade or side grade options. Some of them are a bit risky, such as Cast Bones, Blood Rush Bellows, or No Fear, but I still had to include them because if you were to ask anyone how to upgrade the Kayo Armory deck, their first words would be, put Blood Rush Bellows. And I get it why. I get why. Blood Rush Bellows is a good card. It pretty much makes brutes the threat they are. But in a deck designed around discarding inconsistency, it adds a aspect of inconsistency which can hurt you at some point in the game. But if you think you need it, go for it. It's not that expensive right now. As you look through the maybe pile, I have a lot of cards here in 1 or 2. That doesn't mean run a playset or run 1. What the 1 or 2 means is 2 is a good upgrade / side grade option, whereas 1 means it's a card you could use, but you might want to consider it. To look at a few cards, for example, and I will include this quote-unquote deck in the description below, so you can look at your options. Cards like Command and Conquer are just pretty much guaranteed good cards to use. 2 for 6 can't be defense reacted to. For cards like Amnesia are more matchup dependent, and there's a lot of cards in this maybe list like that. As well as a few cards that meet the requirements but might not be traditionally the norm, like Critical Strike. It meets the requirements. It has 5 attack, and it blocks for 3. But would you use it? I don't know. Could be a good side grade option. Cards like Yellow Wild Ride and Yellow Pulping are also in here, just because they meet the requirements and can be good. Numbskull meets the requirement, but I don't know if you'd use it. Hey, it's something though. And some other cards like Rising Speed and the other one, which I can't remember what it's called, are in here as well. And these are ones that have effects if you've done something. They still meet the KO requirements, but because you're going to draw cards from random discards, or you're going to make agility or might tokens, you can actually get benefits from these cards as well. Runner has go again if you created Runner if it has go again creates an agility token, meaning you can burn up your agility token and make a new one for next turn. And it still meets the KO requirements. Whereas cards like Skullcrack, I mean, you're gonna discard if you're gonna discard cards at random, why not gain a resource out of it? And then there's some cards that I have at 1 just because, hey, it meets the requirements, but it's a little fishy because it can't quite block. And well, some no blocks are fine. Too many no blocks is just like, hey, one of us is gonna die, and it's probably me. I know a lot of people talked about Zealous Belting. I think Zealous Belting is also good because it's always gonna have go again. Always. And other stuff as well. I have some more equipment here that could be interesting. Silken Gi. There's a lot of 1-cost brute cards out there, and this turns to 0. Anyways, yeah, so these are just a bunch of cards you can look at. I will put a this. I will put a link to this in the description below. And maybe there's a few I forgot. There's a lot of cards that meet the Kayo Armory deck requirements that could easily upgrade or side grade this deck. And that's kind of the joy of a trading card game. Everyone could build their deck differently to get the same results. One guy who plays KO might have a crazy one cost deck strategy that just goes ultra wide. Whereas another guy, maybe he just likes Savage Beatdown so much that he builds a whole deck around it. In the end, the goal is have fun, make friends, and if you can afford it, see the world. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to include both of these in the description below. This is just a KO Armory deck with -1 card, and this is options you can look at. I've been the Jake Mechanologist. I've been working too hard on trying to talk like this, so I'm going to call it a day and work on something else. I'm going to go work on something else.